And if you want to drop off, that's fine. So what I want to do with this unscripted piece is I'm going through a journey. I've been looking at GitHub Copilot for the last couple of years. I've also seen, OpenAI grow. I've seen ChatGPT come online last November. Watched it go to GPT-4. Watched them integrate the Bing search engine. So it's been a really cool process. Lots to learn. There's lots of new knobs and dials to figure out. And they've actually gone from GTP3 to 3.5, now to 4. And what I'm going to show today about the code interpreter, we think this might even be ChatGPT 4.5. Should I use this? Install? You don't have to. Yeah. Well, you could use that, or you can reinstall the. Thanks for the question. You can reinstall the PowerShell AI module, and you can do an update, I believe, and it has a dependency on the PowerShell AI functions, so that'll work for you. So we think we're at GPT 4.5. OpenAI just applied for a trademark, I think it is, for GPT 5. That might be coming in December, maybe earlier. And the pace of innovation and release from OpenAI is pretty crazy. And that's just OpenAI. It doesn't include Anthropic and Poe and Bard and so on. And this is a really amazing time to be around technology, in my opinion. So I figured I'd do some live streaming, spend a half hour plus showing folks how I'm trying to learn this new technology. And I like to play with this new technology. I like to play with new stuff because I start by making mistakes, by learning about how it works, making guesses, being wrong, being right. I start to develop an intuition about how these things work and how to use them. So here I spend $20 a month for the ChatGPT Plus. It gives me access to a lot of cool pieces. It's faster. I don't get messages that they're at capacity. They do govern. They put a governor on the GTP4 stuff, like 50. You can do 50 questions per 3 hours, which is kind of annoying, but all right. But it also gives access to the newer features that come out. You get first dibs. So I heard about Code Interpreter a few months ago. I wasn't able to get access. They gave it to their top researchers in the community, and people were talking about it and showing things, and it was like, wow, this looks really slick. So if you do pay the $20 and you get into ChatGPT, you can click on the ellipses here on the left. You can go into settings and beta, and then you can go into beta features. And then you can turn on the code interpreter down here on the bottom. You have to opt in. I also have opted into the plugins and the custom instructions. We're not going to talk about those today. From the plugins is really where code interpreter came. That's where it came from. And then they've kind of separated it out. It's still in, I guess, beta phase. Don't have a clue how they're going to integrate this. I also opt into and pay for the REST APIs. That's how my PowerShell AI function works. Though that module works with all the OpenAI pieces, as well as the Azure OpenAI that you can spin up your own instance for. It works with both. I pay for that, and that's a whole bunch of different capabilities, different kinds of models, different kinds of prompts, different kinds of tuning. So hopefully the code interpreter, my speculation is that it's going to become part of the REST APIs. And if it does, which I think it will, be pretty slick. Right now, it only works for Python. And just as a note, Python is what got us here. This is what invented GPT. All the amazing work in natural language, AI, machine learning, etc. It was really Python that got us here. So it makes sense that the code interpreter initially is Python, but I can absolutely see that they'll be able to, I can absolutely see other languages coming into play, like R and Julia, hopefully PowerShell. And we'll take a look at a couple of pieces of really amazing what it can do. Just as a note, thank you for doing the uninstall and reinstall. No clobber needed. Awesome. Yeah, if you play around with the new functions, let me know. Feedback is welcome. So once we enable that beta feature, we can then go into GTP4, and you have a bunch of options when you do the beta. You have a default, which is basically the more accurate large language models that you can use. You can turn on the beta and say, okay, I just want to work with this as in the plugin style, in the plugin notions, or I want to enable the code interpreter. Okay, so with the code interpreter enabled, down here we got a little thing we call what I call an upload button. So today what I wanted to do, I was chatting with some of my data science friends who used to be quants. They used to work for all large financial companies here in Manhattan. Being quants, data science, and beyond. And of course, they have interesting opinions about AI and NLP and so on and so forth. So I was saying, hey, it'd be really, I want to, I'm not a data scientist. I've been around folks like that for years. They have a different kind of intuition how to solve problems and what they're solving. Doug, you're a PS guy. How much Python do you have to learn in your AI journey? Great question. It's good to know the syntax, and if you kind of squint, and maybe Mr. Stover, if you're still here, he can back me up on it. If you squint, you can actually see that Python and PowerShell are similar. You got to learn different packages, different modules. I didn't have to learn that much. I played with Python over the years. I was there when it was created, and it's good to know, but it's not. You're going to see here. You don't need to know, and you can do some and see some interesting things. Also, I'm not just a PS guy. I was a C# developer for years, and so anyway. So let's. So I was talking to my data science friends, and I was like, "Hey, let's do a little bit of a walkthrough. Take a look at what this GTP4 stuff is with the code interpreter." I wanted to get their sense of what questions they would ask, how they would go about looking at information. So we talked about looking at for example, go to the SEC filings for companies and look at their 10K report. And I was going to show that a little bit today. Python was not one of the primary influences on PowerShell. Wow, cool. Good to know. Cool. I think I'll pose that question to Bruce Payette in the next couple of weeks. I kind of thought it was, and I'm clearly wrong. So that's awesome. So I wanted to get their sense of, so we went and looked at a 10K report from the SEC. It was all in HTML, and it was really kind of cool. I'll probably do that at another live stream in the coming weeks, is that I can actually download the HTML from the SEC, and then I was able to, using this upload button, put the HTML there. Ask Bruce, it might have inspired him. There you go. Well, Bruce has saw somebody talking about and as you've mentioned over the years, he's a language encyclopedia. Who knows what influenced him? In fact, his braid language I'm really excited about because it's all Lisp, Scheme, and Clojure based. So we'll see how all that plays out. Absolutely, he's an inspiration for sure. So I started pulling in some of the HTML, and this thing recognized it. The code interpreter said knew what it did, and it actually began to say, okay, I see discrepancies in the data. I can fill in some issues, typically what a data scientist does, and then we can do some analysis. And I said, let me just take a look at some more tabular data. The interesting thing about data scientists, 80% of their job is spent analyzing, scrubbing, and correcting data before they actually go to town on it and start figuring out relationships and whatnot. And that's really where is one of the strengths of code interpreter. I don't think we're going to see that much today. So on that note, let's also go over to, so here's Kaggle. This is what there's things like Kaggle Grandmasters. People who have done they look at this kind of data. They do look at trending data sets. They can analyze this thing from 8 ways to Sunday, and use things like XGBoost and PyTorch and all kinds of stuff. And they have these competitions where who can come up with the best visualizations, analysis, and so on. So when I went to not use the HTML from the SEC, I decided, let me go see what the data sets are. And I searched for some information about stocks. And I was able to pull down let's see if we can get this. I was able to pull down a set of I was able to pull down a zip file, financial stocks from 2014 to 2018. I was like, okay, let me try and do this. So I did a little bit, but saved it for this demo. So I clicked on the plus button, and I'm going to say upload that zip file, and you can see it's uploading, and I think it's good. So what's cool is you can think about, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, you can think about GTP. I look at it as a really smart intern. And now the really smart intern knows how to do amazing stuff with Python. If you do some Google searches, you can find Google searches. If you do some Google searches, or you actually ask GPT itself, which I won't do here, you can find out how many different libraries it loads into the session we're doing here. Hundreds of packages, knows about things like pandas, numpy, scipy, pytorch, all the different analytics. So it's a really smart intern, and it really knows how to do Python development, and we can take it further. So now I've uploaded a zip file, and I'm just type. You can just talk. I talk to it. I'm like, okay, so now what, right? And it starts telling me. It looks like you uploaded a zip file named 2014, 2018 zip. That is correct. And to assist me further, it tells me what it's going to do, and off it goes. And now we can take a look at the code. So this is the actual Python it's generating and running in a constrained container. I believe they're using Kubernetes on the back end, and they're using Docker containers. So it's a nice sandboxed process. In fact, if you walk away from this session, the data that you uploaded will no longer be available, although the conversation will be. So that looks like good Python. Don't care. If you don't want to see it, you can hide the work. Did a bunch of other things to get the contents, and now it comes back and tells me that is correct. It contains those 5 CSV files, and it continues on. All I asked was, now what? Okay, these files likely contain financial data of certain stocks. I'd agree with that. The columns represent various financial metrics. The file contains 225 columns in total. Now, this is typical of a data science approach, right? You grab a bunch of CSV data. You want to know how many columns you have. You want to know how many rows you have. You want to know how many CSVs you have. And this is stuff that you would actually be coding. And GPT is off to the races. And in fact, data.head, open paren, close paren, that's like doing a select object hyphen first 5 or 10, similar concept. They're using pandas, which I wish we had in PowerShell, but maybe some other time. Anyway, so, and it tells you, it listed out 5 rows, 225 columns, and gives a bit of an overview. So already I'm getting some rich information about this. And it comes down and says, to provide useful analysis or visualizations, I need more instructions. Do you have a particular questions or analysis? And yeah, so since I know this is stock information over those years, I happen to know that I don't think the revenue growth, gross profit, excellent. So let's take a look at, and then, if you have questions, like something you want me to throw at this, let me know. But this is kind of how I start to think and just play around and kind of give myself the freedom to have the imagination of what to talk to GPT about. Let's look at IBM, Microsoft, Google. And what's cool is I'm not the best speller. And if I misspelled any of these, it will actually correct it and get the right stuff. Apple over these years, and I'll say just gross profit. See what we got. Off it goes. And now watch how quickly this starts to go to work. We'll see if it gets the right answer. And so it's going to join the data from the data. I think that it's going to further unzip, or it's already been unzipped. Use data frames. That's a standard way of doing things. There it reads the CSV, so that's like our import CSV in PowerShell, for those who here are PowerShell folks. And if you don't want to watch this, that's fine. It takes a little bit. You can close this down. You can go off and grab a coffee. And notice it actually translated. I spelled out Microsoft, Google, and Apple, translated it to the stock tickers. How did it do that? Well, that's what large language models do. To me, it's magic. And here we go. And there it is. So now that's coming back as a table. I didn't ask it to do that. It just knows to do it. So up top, it's actually using pandas. So if you're comfortable with working with Python, great. If not, it'll give you a nice little table. And we'll let it cook a little more. And I was going to just say, hey, you know what? That looks great. I'd like to see some charts. Would you like to visualize? Yes. I'm going to say yes. So I've done pretty much nothing, right? I uploaded a file. I said, now what? I know some things about stock tickers, and I know about gross profit. Thank you for joining, Jeffrey. And there you go. So there we have visualizations of the actual gross profits. That's pretty slick in my book. Not only is it slick, but if I was sitting there trying to figure out my own company's data, I can actually upload the CSV files and ask some similar questions and start getting some really good information about it. And it gives me some observations about the Apple's, Google's, Microsoft's, IBM's profits over that period of time. Yeah, let's, what other feature analysis? And I'm going to even just, these are low, minimal effort prompts on my end. And that shows you the quality of this GPT-4 model. And the good news is there's lots of competition in the space as the other big tech companies are bringing their large language models online and providing this kind of stuff. So right here, if you're not familiar with this kind of stuff, I can ask, other feature analysis, what other visualizations do you have? And I can see all kind of, I can then pick whichever one I'd like to do. Anybody have a particular piece they'd like to see about the gross profits or this kind of data that might be interesting? We'll do one more. Let's do, I'll just type in trend analysis. And it tells me what it's going to do. This is a great intern. Cool thing about this intern, doesn't sleep, works 168 hours a week. Doesn't really get tired. And it's showing me some of the information that's in the data set in the CSV file. I didn't even look at the headings, and it's telling me what I can look at. And let's go with free cash flow, just as randomly picking stuff. Now, if I was really into this data and I understood it, I could better direct the intern to give me things that I want. So I'll let this cook for a bit more, and then I'm going to do one more piece at the end, a couple more pieces, and then I'm just going to wrap up for today. So if you have any questions or thoughts or observations, I also am planning to do, I'm looking to do this more frequently. And there we go. We have a plot line to visualize free cash flow of those selected companies. Now this may be important to you, maybe it's not, maybe there's other data, but you can see how quickly you can get to this information. Again, I'm going to be doing these more frequently on GPT about this particular piece, about other parts of GPT. If you have suggestions or things you'd like to see, definitely drop me a note and we can take care of that. Now, if I wanted to, let's say I was getting ready to do this in a PowerPoint, put the graphs in a JPEG. Let's see what happens. So once I'm done with that, I can capture, hopefully, my results, see what it's doing. And I believe it's using Plotlib, and it's going to do, it knows what it did already. And you can see the save fig here is its amount to gross profit JPEG. So it's going to take those plots and it's going to save it to the Docker image in Kubernetes. And when it's done, it'll show me, and it gives me download links. How cool is that? So if I click on the gross, see, and I can open that file. Let's just go with Paint. Let's see, did it come up? And yep, there's, now I've downloaded that image to my machine, and I can actually include it in my PowerPoint, whatever I want, grab both of them. I could even have asked for a zip file, so I could have had both, and then I could send that zip file off to somebody else. So Dwayne asks, what are your thoughts around security and using your company's information in ChatGPT? Don't do it. While ChatGPT and all the different offers of these large language models say that they don't share the data, they don't do X, Y, and Z, you don't know. You can't, I would not trust it. So we'll see how that story unfolds going forward. But don't let that deter you from learning how to use this, because those problems will get solved. They're actually using GPT to better align and secure GPT. So I suspect and speculate that that's going to be something that's going to be solved going forward. But yeah, initially, don't do it. That's why I use public data sets. So I can experiment and see how this is going. So one other piece, Samuel, what is the probability of hallucination using code interpreter since you're providing the data? Great question. Unfortunately, I didn't wear my shirt today because I put it in the laundry. I have a shirt that says, I hallucinate more than ChatGPT does. Hallucination relative to this is greatly reduced because you're giving not just about the data, but because it's actually developing code and running it. So for example, if these CSV files had missing data, it would have, it detects that it has missing data. Or let's say in one data set, you have month, day, year broken out into different columns. And in another one, you have just date, like, 1/1/2023. It will determine that, and then it will normalize the data. So this approach really reduces. It still hallucinates, but it really cuts down on it. But then again, I've been on many peer reviews of code. I've chatted with my buddies. I've chatted with colleagues over the decades about code. We hallucinate as much as GPT. So that's why I got the shirt. So, if you're gonna let hallucinations and security hold you back from learning this tool, I think it's to one's detriment. So, but your mileage may vary. So I wanted to do one more thing. Give me one Python file of what we did while it's cooking. Let's see. ChatGPT can make coding errors. Have you seen coding errors with Code Interpreter? Yeah, ChatGPT is just basically, it has a broader range of hallucination capabilities. Not only does this, I have not seen a lot of, I've seen far less coding errors. And then again, it actually generates the code, runs the code, and determines if it makes mistakes. I still would not take this, save it, and check it into production. I'll ask it to write tests. I will review the test. Again, it's a really smart intern, but the key word is intern. So if I had a bunch of interns working with me, yeah, I would check all their work, right? Or, and being that I've been in the industry way too long, I can look at a bunch of code, I can look at a bunch of tests, and I can say, hey, what's this, this, and this? Ask some questions. They can correct me, I can correct them. They can go back and shore up the tests. So ChatGPT is not magical. We have to get rid of our automation bias. Just because it's a computer, just because it's software, doesn't mean it gives us the right answer, even in what we do today. So what's really cool here is it's actually taking what we did right from the beginning of uploading the CSVs, cracking them open, looking at a bunch of information, asking a couple of questions about stocks and gross profit, and then doing certain analysis, it's actually generating right down to the plotting a complete Python, that whole Python program. I was doing it as a script. That's not what I wanted, but that's fine. So here's the script. It's doing all the imports. It's grabbing all the data. Does it do the unzip? Nope, it assumes that it's already unzipped. So now what I would typically do, but I'm not going to demo here, is I can then copy this code with the copy button. And then I go over to Visual Studio Code where I have the Jupyter plugin and I have Python installed on my machine and pretty much all of these libraries. And I paste it into my Jupyter notebook. I run it and I get the charts and I'm ready to go. So this makes me think back to early days of PowerShell, because I like talking about PowerShell, all about automation. And as I got better at PowerShell, I could be asked a question. I'm not an IT admin, but there's things I get asked to do to automate different pieces. And somebody would come to me and say, hey, we need to do this and grab that and do the other thing and save it over here, blah, blah, blah. And I'd say, oh, okay, that's going to take me like 4 days. And I'd whip up 5-6 lines of PowerShell, head to the pub, and, deliver the script to them quickly. I see this as the same exact thing. And yeah, just like you do import, install modules from the PowerShell gallery. Do you trust them to run on your production data? You find stuff on GitHub, you take those things and run them on production data. The only thing I use on production data is my import Excel module. That's been under development for many years and been battle tested and battle hardened. So same thing here, but this is an amazing, amazing tool you want in your tool belt. And again, you don't need to know Python to do all that. You could just use the outputs and results. You have natural language conversations with it. And what's really interesting and wild, even though, I don't want to do that, even though we don't have things like pandas and matplotlib and whatnot, I know what these things are and what they kind of do. But I'll take this kind of data, I'll drop it into Visual Studio Code, and then because I have GitHub Copilot installed, I'll select that code and I will say convert to PowerShell, and it makes an amazing attempt to do so. And especially with the new Copilot X, which I'll probably do a live stream on. So make sure you're watching me on Twitter, make sure you're watching me on Meetup. I'll be posting when I'll do those things. But I can take this data, do the ask it to do the conversion. Can't do 1,000%. So, but it gets me 90% of the way there. Couple of tweaks. Instead of using matplotlib, I'll use scotplot. I'll have to make changes of how the plotting actually works, but scotplot's pretty close to what matplot does. And the pandas, you can this is not, in my opinion, super complicated. Pandas work, and they're just basically, group objects and things of that nature. So you can get pretty close to what you want to do. And then I have a PowerShell piece that can do similar things. Let's see, question. I have seen someone going back to a previous entry and then edit it. Oh, wow, this is new too. Absolutely. You can come back up here, right? And I can click on the edit button and I can then say, oh, I don't want to put so I'm editing this actual prompt I did, and I can extend the prompt and have it regenerate the information, so on and so forth. So yeah, this is really, again, you saw what I did. I'm not a data scientist. I'm just asking some basic questions. I'm communicating like a high school student to it, and it's doing some really cool stuff. ChatGPT, let's see, what is, I've seen someone going back. Wait, I thought I saw another question, but maybe it got deleted on my side. So here's something cool I didn't notice. This is brand new today. I don't know how many people if you've seen Bing Chat, which is really cool. It actually does a bunch of stuff, and then and GitHub Copilot X does this as well. You can ask it a question, you can put in a paragraph of a prompt, you can put in 5 pages of a prompt, you can put in a single line of a prompt. It'll try to do what it's doing, and then it'll give you little suggestions at the bottom. This is brand new. I didn't see this yesterday. So here it says, I can actually click this button and it's saying, hey, do you want to analyze the correlation between metrics, or do I want to do a visualize sector-wide? Yeah, We'll let that cook. You don't have to stay for that. It might take a while. So it gave me some suggestions of what to do next. I click on a button, I'm good to go. It will be great to play with ChatGPT custom instructions to be a PowerShell expert. Thank you. Or just an intern. I mean, helping with Power. Absolutely. The custom instructions are great. PowerShell is a little bit more challenging in GPT space because there's not a ton of stuff out there in the let's say the GitLab and the GitHub space that it could actually use and work with, but that's improving. I think due to potentially human feedback, and they're finding better sources to train the large language models on. But yeah, this thing is one of the reasons I built the imported my Excel module was that early on I was like, hey, I want to do things like Matplotlib. I can, if I had Python, I can actually sit there and do a bunch of stuff, take an array, create a chart, spin it up and show it. And I was like, I want to do that in PowerShell. And it drove me down for quite a period of time back in 2014, 2015. Like, how can I do that? What are the different tools I need? How easily is that done? And then ultimately I hit on using Excel directly and not using the COM object, etc. So what's my point? Yeah, so Python and those kind of languages, again, Python got us to where we are today with all this great innovation. So it's clearly better tuned for it. But other languages and other techniques are coming online. And then look, now saying what caused the dip in energy section, show me why. So this is really, this is first I'm seeing this today. This is absolutely mind-blowing to me. So I'm going to stop there. Any questions or comments, concerns? Yeah, we got issues with security. You can, depending on how you got to learn how to be a prompt engineer still, and that's probably going to be. It's getting down to where this is this simple to do, and the better you learn how to do prompt engineering, the better results you're going to get. But you can already see I did simple, minimal effort prompts, and it's already doing some really cool stuff. And it's prompting me with better prompts for next steps. This is new too. So based on my prompt of asking it to save it as an image, it's automatically saving these things as images now. So this has been kicked up another notch. Will other payment options be available? Now it's only a credit card. Great question. I have no idea. That's a good question for the OpenAI folks. I don't know what, I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. What do you want to do? Pay in Bitcoin? I don't know. So yeah, I'm planning to do another one of this really soon. And now that I have some new toys to play with, I'll let you folks go while I go and explore more and figure out things to do. And I have my own really smart intern that I can ask questions of, and then I can drop this into GitHub Copilot and convert as much as I can to PowerShell. Who knows, maybe I'll be able to convert pandas into PowerShell, and then I'll have a whole entire library to do some cool things with. Thanks for joining. Glad you liked it. Yeah, this stuff is just, if you sat here with me, I sit here this stuff would just make me laugh out loud. Like, how does it figure this stuff out? So I encourage everybody to jump in. Enjoy the rest of your day. Follow me on the places, and I'll be talking about this a whole lot more. Have a good one. Take care.